On today's Technobabble, editing high-key footage.
This is Tech No Babble, your weekly source for church video and graphics news, perspectives, tips, and tricks. And now here's your host, Paul Clifford.
Hi everyone, and welcome again to another episode of Technobabble. I am your host, Paul Allen Clifford, and I would love for you to join the conversation. So head on over to trinitydigitalmedia.com/contact. There you can leave your questions, comments, snide remarks, just tell me how I'm doing. Anything like that is more than welcome. And I've also got all my contact information, so if leaving a comment on a blog isn't your thing, well, you can email me or even give me a call on the voicemail line 1-877-763-3246, 1-877-POD-ECHO, and you can echo back to me at that location. You can also, if you're watching the video, see that I have my Twitter handle right under my face, and that's at Paul Allen Cliff, PaulAllenclif, and I'm happy to interact with you over there as well. If you're watching live, you can click on the chat room and we can interact there as well. So before we get started, I do want to remind you of just a couple of important things. First off, my streaming is provided by churchstreaming.tv. Churchstreaming.tv is just an incredible service. In fact, they just added an additional feature last night, or in the last couple of days, that I think I'm going to take full advantage of, because sometimes I'll record a show like today that also is an audio podcast. And what I've normally been doing is exporting it and opening it up in iTunes, etc., etc. Well, now they have a feature where you can download the audio to a show in MP3 format. So I'll just download that, change the ID3 tags, and I will be done. And that's just another example of how they're thinking through, okay, how can we be most helpful to the people that are using our service? So I want you to head over to trinitydigitalmedia.com/church streaming and get your free trial today. I think you'll be really pleased with it. You can watch on iOS or Android without any additional fee. You can even have a Roku channel. They've thought of everything, and I'm really, really pleased with what they have going for them there. I also want to remind you that my pastor's book, What Life Are You Waiting For, is coming out before too long. You can pre-order it on Amazon right now. I was just at church last night, and we're going to be talking about it some this weekend, including some additional content that hasn't been released thus far. So I'm really excited about that. And so if you are watching this before February 15th and 16th, 2014, you can absolutely go over to churchforme.tv and watch my church's services on Saturday night at 5:55 and Sunday morning at 9:30 and 11:30, all times Eastern, and watch what we're talking about there, and you'll just see all the great stuff that God's doing through this book, and how God is going to be using it to reach out to other people and to get us all to take the risks, which, by the way, aren't risks if He's told us to do them, to go out and do what I'm telling you to do every single show. Go out and change eternity. So go ahead and pre-order your copy, and I think you'll be really excited that you did. So that's trinitydigitalmedia.com/whatlifebook. So without further ado, let's get into editing a high key background. Now, if you did what I said last week, if you have a white background up, if you've lit it well, if you've got a good camera that can be adjusted so that the subject is exposed properly but the background is overexposed, then you might notice that you have to zoom in quite a lot, or you get other stuff around the edges. So how do you fix that? Well, let's take a look at a video I did earlier on today in the in my editor as I deal with the footage from yesterday from the Eternity Changers show. Now, for reasons that I don't quite get, Camtasia didn't capture the microphone audio, so I'm going to have to do the audio live while you're watching the video. So if it seems like it's lagging, it's just that I've forgotten what I said initially. So let's bring that up, and let's go without further ado into this. So this is the video as I have cropped it. Now, I forgot to set this up so that it started again. So, crud. So this is how it is once I have cropped on either side of the video, and I put just a white background behind it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of the white background so that you can see where I have cropped it. See, I've cropped it right there on the edge. I know that as the talent I need to stay within that cylinder, and so that's what I did. But you might notice in the lower right hand corner of the screen, right where that cursor is moving right there, that's not pure white. So how would I get rid of that? Well, there are a couple of ways that I could do it. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to use a 4-point garbage mat. Now, a 4-point garbage mat is a filter that you put on a video, and that allows you to cut out part of the video. Now, the way that it's set up initially, instead of showing everything except what I'm cutting out, it is going to show only what I have cut out. So I'll show you how to fix that first. But the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to start clicking my new points. So right there, you'll see right at my wrist, I'm clicking. You see there. And next, we're going to go to point number 2, and I'm going to click on that. See, I'm going with my cursor off screen. That's where I tell it which point I want to click on. And I'm actually making a mistake right here. I always forget whether it goes counterclockwise or if it goes left, right, left, right. So it does in fact go counterclockwise. So I've actually made a mistake here where it's giving me more of an hourglass pattern. Here you can see the interface where I have these crosshairs that I clicked on so that it would allow me to choose which I wanted to do. Now I'm going to click on invert, and when I click on invert, what that actually does is, instead of showing me everything that I have cut out, it shows me everything that I have left. So when I get rid of the labels, you'll see that it's much closer, but I've actually, if you could zoom in, you'd see it's actually kind of an hourglass pattern because I reversed point 3 and point 4. So I'm fixing that right now to get this just exactly right so that you can see just how I can cut that out completely. Now the video isn't moving right now, so it is possible that I will encroach into that frame. So what I would do in that case is I would animate the mask. In Final Cut Pro and a lot of other software, we have what are called keyframes. Now keyframes, that's a legacy from back in the day where all animation was done by a master animator and an apprentice animator. Nowadays, you are the master animator and you have an apprentice animator, and the apprentice is your computer. So you tell the computer where you want it to start and what you want it to stop with, and the computer figures out everything in between. In Adobe Flash, that's called tweening, everything in between. So you are the master animator, and you tell it what to do at these key frames. And if you find that along the way something changes, you just add another keyframe and it redoes it, does it again. So that would be how you would fix that if my left hand were to encroach into the frame. But what you should know is that's not really the only way that you could fix this problem. So you can crop and then fix little mistakes with a garbage mat, a 4-point garbage mat, as I have shown you. Ideally, what I would have done was I would have lit this properly. Unfortunately, I decided to change my lighting just a little bit so that I didn't have to stand exactly in the right spot to cover over my main light. I moved that light over to the side and then I put in another light. And when I put in the other light, there is a place where it's not well lit enough, and that's what you're seeing by my wrist. There is a place where it is not quite well lit enough. So that's a bit of a problem, let's say. So what so that's how I fix that. So you can see there's the chunk that is missing as I disable the white background. So basically you need a background that is the same color as your overexposed background so that when you cut out everything that isn't there, it will in fact just blend in to this solid white background that you put underneath your video in your editor. Now, if you have a very, very basic editor, it's possible that this won't solve that problem. So you might need something like Adobe After Effects, Sony Vegas, Final Cut Pro, something like that to do that. So that's one way to solve that problem, but there is another way. What you can do is, first I'm going to disable that 4-point garbage mat. There we go, and we still see the problem down right next to my wrist, which you would be able to see a little bit better in real life, by the way, than you can see on the live stream or the recording of the live stream. But what I'm doing here is I'm zooming it in to 110%. So I know that it's just a little bit in the corner, and I can zoom in just a hair without people noticing a difference in resolution. So that's in fact what I'm doing, is I'm zooming in just a hair and reframing the shot to crop out that. So that's the second way that I can fix this little problem, is I can zoom in just slightly and readjust my shot, basically. So I can do that, but there is yet another way that I can do this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to uncrop my footage, and you will see how it looked initially here in just a second, and I'm going to put it back to 100%, basically back to how it was at the beginning. And you'll see all that stuff around the edge that was there before I cropped it out. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to put on an 8-point garbage mat. Now you'll see all 8 points around the periphery here, and you'll notice they start in the upper left hand corner and go counterclockwise. So what I'm going to do here, making sure that's centered, I'm going back to the filter and I'm going to reposition all 8 of those points so that instead of so that basically I cut out an octagon. Now it's not a perfect octagon, but basically I've got 8 points to deal with, and since I've got 8 points to deal with, I can tweak a few things. Make sure if you started with the 4-point garbage mat, like I did, that when you go to click your new points, you're not clicking on number 1 for the 4-point garbage mat, which is exactly what I'm doing here. So that's why nothing seems to be happening. So I've just realized that, and I'm going to disable my 4-point garbage mat and go back to my 8-point garbage mat. Now you see point number 1 has in fact moved. So I'm basically imagining an octagon type shape where everything is white outside of that area. Now this would be definitely useful if your pastor or whoever you're shooting uses their hands a lot when they talk, like I do. Since I'm the videographer, it's easy for me to remember not to use my hands too much, but it's harder for them. So you'll see right here that that wasn't a good choice in where I put point number 7, because it's connecting between point 6 and 7 in this octagon. So I actually need to put point 7 a little bit lower. So that's what I'm doing right now, is putting point number 7 right there. And then let's go to point number 8. Point number 8 is coming up right there. And as soon as I get rid of those labels, yeah, so you see that's not a pretty octagon, but it's got 8 sides. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's what it would look like if I didn't have the white background behind it again. So basically I'm just cutting out all the good video and leaving, or cutting out the bad video and leaving the good video there. So that's 3 ways that you can get rid of any of this excess spill. Is you can crop and then use a 4-point garbage mat, crop and zoom in, or use an 8-point garbage mat. And each of those is going to be a good way to do it depending on your situation. So depending on how it looks, notice how beautiful the video looks here, not the subject matter per se, but the background. The white background is just seamless and gorgeous, and this is what we're looking for when we're doing this kind of video work, is this beautiful white background that looks like it's incredible. Now what I can do, by the way, is instead of zooming in, I can also zoom out. The problem with zooming out is that I will get shorter, but as long as that white background fills the frame, the only problem would be that my eyes are no longer on the top third, which is kind of an issue with how I would be framing this. So those are just a few different things that you can do as you are tweaking this video to get it exactly the way that you want it to be. And it really will give you great results. So going back to me, here I am. Um, I really think that that's one of the great techniques that any videographer needs to know how to do. You never know when your pastor's going to say, "Hey, can we have a video where it looks like you're in heaven?" Um, and you could absolutely do that. Put a little fog down, and all of a sudden you're in a cloud in a white room. Beautiful. Um, or if you were trying to redo, hey, I'm a Mac, I'm a PC kind of commercial, you could do that with this technique. You could also, if you remember in the Matrix, the construct is where they load all their weapons and stuff. If you wanted to do something like that, you could with this technique. So it's really limitless in what you can do. You could also, instead of using white light, you could put a gel over your lights using a gel frame, and you could have a color background. And I'm wondering, I've said this just now, and all of a sudden it seems like what maybe I ought to do is get some colored gels and do that so that I have some flexibility in my backgrounds. So maybe I'll start doing that for some of my shows. Instead of shooting here at the desk, I can shoot up against some colored backgrounds, and that would be a pretty cool thing to do as well. So this is really a flexible technique um, that I can use to get something really, really good from in this situation. So I just wanted you to know how to do this roughly. It will take some practice to get it right because you need to get the exposure on the subject correct and the exposure on the background correct. Um, More light is probably better than less light, and you might have to take 2 or 3 runs at it. I would generally mic it with a shotgun, but in certain situations, maybe a lavalier or an over-the-air countryman style would be acceptable. But if it was something dramatic, I think I would stick with the shotgun outside of the frame. So that is the basics of how you would do that. And I would love to see any links anywhere that you have used this. Please feel free to put a link in the comments below or tell me where to find it. YouTube doesn't like links, so if you're watching this on YouTube, no dice. But you could go to trinitydigitalmedia.com and search for this episode. So this will be tnb140213. That's 2014, 02 for February, 13 for February 13th. So tnb140213 is the episode number, if you will, and that's where you can find this show and you can comment on it. If you're on Trinity Digital Media within a week of when this was shot, it still should be up on the blog, and so it'll definitely be up there. It just won't be as easy to find if you try and find it 6 months from now or a year from now, etc. So that's one of the techniques that I would recommend that you use as you're going out and changing eternity. Until next time, I'm Paul Allen Clifford with TrinityDigitalMedia.com.